Hi there, my name is James, and welcome to our channel. Here, we dive into some of the most shocking true crime stories. Today, we're talking about a case that involves love, betrayal, and a hidden secret that changed everything. Stick around, because you won't want to miss this one. On a cold September night in 2018, two lovers, Jane Harper and Lisa Fields, seem to have escaped a world of judgment and fear. Little did they know, someone much closer than they thought had a dark secret, one that would unravel their lives in a way they could never have imagined. Riverside, a small town nestled in the countryside, offered the perfect place for Jane and Lisa to start fresh. It was quiet, far removed from the life they had left behind. For Jane, Riverside was a place where no one knew her, where the pressure of her conservative family couldn't reach. Lisa, on the other hand, was drawn to the town's open fields and the sense of freedom it promised. They had eloped to escape a world that didn't understand their love. But Jane's life had always been complicated. Growing up in a strict household, she had faced years of rejection from her family, especially from her controlling father. The family's rules left no room for someone like Lisa, a bold, rebellious spirit who lived life on her own terms. Together, they hoped to leave the past behind. Yet, one person from that past couldn't stay away. Jane's estranged brother, Andrew Harper, had been absent for years. Now he was back, bringing with him secrets that neither Jane nor Lisa could see coming. Jane Harper and Lisa Fields first crossed paths on May 14, 2015, in a college art class. Jane was quiet, keeping to herself, focused on her work. Lisa, in contrast, had a bold presence that couldn't be ignored. She was outgoing, confident, and full of life. The two were complete opposites, yet something clicked between them from the start. As their friendship deepened, it became clear that their bond was more than just platonic. For Jane, this connection was like nothing she had ever experienced, but it came with challenges. Jane's family, especially her father, had made their expectations clear. They demanded that Jane follow the path they had set for her, a path that left no room for someone like Lisa. Jane's father was strict, controlling, and firmly against the idea of her being with another woman. The constant pressure made it difficult for Jane to embrace who she truly was. Lisa, on the other hand, had always lived on her own terms. She had a rebellious spirit, a past filled with tough experiences, and a strong desire to protect the people she loved. She wasn't one to be told how to live, and she encouraged Jane to be the same. With Lisa, Jane began to see that a different life was possible, one where she didn't have to hide or conform to her family's expectations. Despite the obstacles, their relationship only grew stronger. Against all odds, they decided to leave everything behind. The pressure from Jane's family was too much to bear, and staying in their hometown would only lead to more heartbreak. Lisa, always the adventurer, convinced Jane that the only way to be truly free was to start fresh somewhere new. Riverside, a small town far away from their past, seemed like the perfect place. There they could be themselves, without the judgment and restrictions of Jane's family hanging over them. Together, they made the bold decision to elope, packing their things and leaving their old life behind. But starting over would come with challenges neither of them could have predicted. What they didn't know was that someone from Jane's past wasn't willing to let go so easily. On the night of September 12, 2018, there was an unexpected knock at the door of Jane and Lisa's quiet Riverside home. They weren't expecting visitors. When Jane opened the door, her estranged brother, Andrew Harper, stood on the porch. She hadn't seen or heard from him in years. His sudden reappearance caught her completely off guard. Andrew had always been a bit of a mystery. Growing up, he was distant, rarely staying in one place for long. He drifted in and out of Jane's life, never sticking around long enough to truly connect with her. The rest of the family had written him off years ago, and Jane hadn't spoken to him since she left home. But here he was, looking for a place to stay, with no explanation about where he'd been or why he had suddenly decided to come back. Jane welcomed him in, feeling a strange mix of comfort and unease. After all, he was her brother, someone who had been absent but still felt like family. Lisa, however, was not so easily convinced. From the start, something about Andrew didn't sit right with her. She had never met him before, but she noticed the little things, the way he dodged questions about his past, the way he seemed too interested in Jane's life, and the strange, lingering glances he gave her when he thought no one was watching. Over the next few days, Andrew settled in, but his presence began to shift the atmosphere in the house. Jane, always the peacemaker, was eager to reconnect with her brother, trying to ignore the growing tension. But Lisa couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. She tried to bring it up with Jane, but Jane brushed off her concerns, insisting that Andrew was just going through a rough time. Andrew became more involved in their lives, asking personal questions about their relationship and offering to help with small tasks around the house. His behavior wasn't overtly alarming, but there was an undercurrent of something darker beneath the surface. Lisa could sense it, even if she couldn't put her finger on exactly what it was. One evening, Lisa noticed that some of her personal items had been moved. At first, she thought it was just her imagination, but then it started happening more frequently. Small things, her keys, her phone, would be left in places she hadn't put them. She mentioned it to Jane, who dismissed it as nothing more than forgetfulness. But Lisa knew better. It felt like someone was trying to unsettle her, to make her question herself. Andrew's behavior grew stranger by the day. He was constantly hovering around Jane, offering unsolicited advice, and subtly undermining Lisa at every turn. Whenever they disagreed about something, Andrew would side with Jane, framing Lisa as overprotective or paranoid. It was clear he was trying to create a wedge between them, but Jane remained blind to it, caught up in the idea of having her brother back in her life. Then, Lisa started digging. She couldn't just sit back and watch as Andrew's presence took over their lives. Late at night, while Jane was asleep, Lisa began searching for information about Andrew, anything that might explain his sudden reappearance. What she found left her shaken. Andrew wasn't who he claimed to be. Through online searches and conversations with people who had known the Harper family, Lisa discovered that Andrew had been living a lie for years. He wasn't Jane's biological brother. In fact, he wasn't even related to the Harper family at all. Years ago, he had infiltrated their lives under false pretenses, convincing everyone that he was their long-lost relative. He had taken advantage of their trust, swindling money from Jane's father and disappearing when things got too complicated. Now, he was back, and it was clear he had a new target in mind: Jane. The weight of this revelation was overwhelming. Lisa didn't know how to tell Jane the truth. She feared how Jane would react, knowing how much she had wanted to believe in Andrew's return. But there was no time to hesitate. Andrew was dangerous, and Lisa needed to act fast. That night, Lisa confronted Andrew in private, hoping to catch him off guard. But Andrew didn't deny the accusations. Instead, he smiled. His calm, cold response sent chills down her spine. He had no intention of leaving. "What are you going to do, Lisa?" he said quietly, his eyes locked on hers. "Tell Jane? Do you really think she'll believe you?" Lisa's worst fears were realized. Andrew wasn't just a liar, he was a threat. And now, Lisa had to find a way to protect Jane before it was too late. Lisa couldn't ignore the feeling in her gut. Andrew was more than just an unwelcome guest. There was something deeply unsettling about him. She decided to dig deeper into his past, hoping to find something, anything, that would explain his strange behavior. The truth she uncovered was far worse than she imagined. Late one night, while Jane slept, Lisa began her investigation. She scoured social media and public records, piecing together bits of information that didn't add up. Andrew had no traceable history after he left Jane's family years ago. In fact, he seemed to have wiped himself from existence during that time. Determined to find answers, Lisa contacted an old friend of the Harper family who revealed a shocking truth. Andrew wasn't Jane's brother. Years ago, Andrew had wormed his way into the Harper family, pretending to be a distant relative in need of help. Jane's father had welcomed him with open arms, giving him access to their lives and their money. Andrew had stolen from them, disappearing without a trace when the truth began to surface. Jane never knew the full story. She had been too young at the time to understand the deceit, and her father had shielded her from the details. Now, Andrew was back, and it was clear he had his sights set on Jane. Lisa's heart raced as she processed the information. She had to tell Jane, but how could she? Jane had been so happy to reconnect with Andrew, and Lisa knew this revelation would shatter her. But there was no other choice. Andrew wasn't just a liar. He was dangerous. The next morning, Lisa approached Jane, carefully choosing her words. She explained everything she had found, but Jane refused to believe her. She defended Andrew, saying he had changed, that he was family. The argument grew tense, with Jane insisting Lisa was overreacting. Andrew had manipulated her just as he had manipulated the rest of her family. Later that day, Lisa confronted Andrew directly. She cornered him outside the house, her voice low and steady as she laid out everything she knew. Andrew didn't deny it. Instead, he smiled, his eyes cold and calculating. He had no intention of leaving, and he certainly wasn't afraid of being exposed. "What are you going to do, Lisa?" he asked, his voice chillingly calm. "Tell Jane. She won't believe you. She never will." His confidence rattled Lisa. He had already driven a wedge between her and Jane, and now he was playing mind games, making her question herself. But Lisa wasn't about to back down. She made it clear that she wasn't going anywhere either, and if he wanted a fight, she was ready. As the days went on, tension in the house reached unbearable levels. Jane, caught between her love for Lisa and her loyalty to Andrew, didn't know who to believe. The distance between the two women grew, and Lisa could feel Andrew's grip on Jane tightening with every passing moment. But Lisa wasn't giving up. She knew Andrew was dangerous, and she was determined to protect Jane, no matter the cost. She started taking precautions, locking her belongings away, and keeping a closer eye on Andrew's every move. The atmosphere in the house became suffocating, every interaction laced with unspoken threats. Then, one night, everything came to a head. Lisa overheard Andrew on the phone, his voice low and filled with menace. He was talking to someone about Jane, about controlling her, manipulating her, using her for his own gain. This wasn't just about money anymore. Andrew was obsessed, and Lisa realized the situation was even more dangerous than she had thought. Lisa knew it was only a matter of time before things spiraled out of control. She had to act quickly, but every move she made seemed to push Jane further away. The final confrontation was looming, and Lisa could feel the storm brewing. What happened next would change everything, and leave a trail of devastation in its wake. The tension in the house had been building for days. Lisa couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible was about to happen. Andrew's behavior had grown more erratic, his control over Jane tightening with every passing moment. The final straw came on the night of October 12th, 2018. A heavy storm rolled into Riverside that evening, with rain pounding against the windows of their small home. Inside, the atmosphere was just as charged. Lisa knew it was time to confront Andrew, but she also knew this wouldn't be easy. Jane had been distant, barely speaking to her over the last few days. The pressure of choosing between Lisa and Andrew was taking its toll. As the storm raged outside, Lisa overheard Andrew on the phone again. His voice was low, filled with sinister intent. He was talking about Jane, about using her, manipulating her, bending her to his will. Lisa's heart raced. She knew then that Andrew wasn't just a threat. He was dangerous, and he wasn't going to stop until he had complete control over Jane's life. Lisa couldn't wait any longer. She had to act. Later that night, she confronted Andrew in the living room. Jane was in the bedroom, unaware of the storm brewing in her own home. Lisa's voice was steady but firm as she demanded that Andrew leave. She told him she knew everything about his past, about how he had conned the Harper family, and that she wasn't going to let him ruin Jane's life. Andrew didn't flinch. Instead, he He smiled that same cold, calculating smile he had given her before. "You think you can protect her from me?" he asked, his voice calm despite the tension. "Jane will never believe you. You're just in the way." At that moment, Jane walked into the room, her face filled with confusion. "What's going on?" she asked, her eyes darting between Lisa and Andrew. Lisa tried to explain, but Andrew cut her off, spinning his own twisted version of events. "She's been lying to you, Jane," Andrew said, his voice dripping with false concern. "She's trying to turn you against your own family. She doesn't want you to be happy." Jane stood frozen, torn between the two people she cared about most. She couldn't understand how things had gotten so out of control. The love of her life was accusing her brother, her only remaining family, of being a fraud. It was too much to process. The argument escalated. Lisa, desperate to make Jane see the truth, laid out everything she had uncovered about Andrew's lies. But Andrew was quick to twist her words, painting Lisa as paranoid and manipulative. The storm outside intensified, mirroring the chaos inside the house. Suddenly, Andrew snapped. He grabbed a nearby object, a heavy metal candle holder, and advanced toward Lisa. His eyes were filled with a chilling determination. "You've meddled enough," he snarled. "I'm not going to let you ruin this." Lisa, quick on her feet, dodged his initial strike, but the force of the swing knocked her off balance. She stumbled backward, trying to regain her footing as Andrew moved in for another attack. Jane, finally realizing the danger they were in, shouted for him to stop, but Andrew was too far gone. His obsession with controlling Jane had pushed him over the edge. The room became a blur of movement as Lisa fought to defend herself. The two struggled, Andrew's anger driving his every move. Jane, frozen in shock, could only watch as the situation spiraled out of control. For a moment, it seemed like Andrew might win, his strength overpowering Lisa's attempts to fend him off. But then, in a moment of desperation, Lisa managed to grab the metal candle holder from Andrew's grasp. She swung it with all her strength, striking him hard. Andrew staggered back, blood dripping from a gash on his forehead. His eyes widened in shock as he collapsed to the floor, unconscious. For a moment, the house was silent, save for the sound of the storm raging outside. Lisa stood trembling, the weight of what had just happened sinking in. Jane rushed to her side, her face pale with fear. "We need to call the police," Lisa said, her voice shaking. Jane nodded, still in a daze. The police arrived within minutes, and Andrew was rushed to the hospital. He survived the attack, but his injuries were severe. As the investigation unfolded, the truth about Andrew's past came to light. He was charged with multiple counts of fraud, as well as attempted assault. His reign of manipulation over Jane was finally over. But the damage had been done. Jane and Lisa's relationship, once so strong, had been deeply fractured by the events of that night. The weight of Andrew's betrayal, combined with the trauma of the attack, left scars that wouldn't heal easily. As the storm cleared and the sun rose over Riverside, Jane and Lisa were left to pick up the pieces of their shattered lives. The man who had once claimed to be family had nearly destroyed everything they had built. Now, they had to find a way to move forward, together. News of the confrontation spread quickly through the small town of Riverside. It wasn't long before the media picked up the story, sensationalizing the dramatic events. Headlines like "Brother's Betrayal" and "Family Deception Turns Violent" dominated the local papers, and soon the story gained national attention. The media painted different pictures of the situation. Some outlets focused on Andrew's criminal past, exposing his history of fraud and manipulation. Others speculated on the strained relationship between Jane and Lisa, questioning whether Lisa had played a role in pushing Andrew to violence. Rumors swirled, and public opinion was split. People in Riverside were divided as well. Some sympathized with Jane, seeing her as a victim of her brother's lies. Others questioned how she had been so easily deceived and whether she had known more than she let on. Lisa, too, faced scrutiny, with many wondering if her suspicions about Andrew had fueled the conflict. As the media storm grew, Jane and Lisa struggled to find peace. Their once quiet life in Riverside was now a constant source of speculation and gossip. The attention weighed heavily on their relationship, making it harder for them to heal from the trauma of that night. Despite everything, Jane stood by Lisa, though both knew that things would never be the same. The trust they had once shared had been shattered, and the emotional scars left by Andrew's manipulation ran deep. Moving forward would be difficult, but they were determined to rebuild piece by piece. The media frenzy eventually died down, but the impact on their lives remained. The story of Andrew Harper would haunt them for years to come, a reminder of the danger that can hide behind a familiar face. In the weeks following the confrontation, Jane and Lisa struggled to regain a sense of normalcy. The emotional toll of Andrew's betrayal weighed heavily on them. Jane was particularly shaken, grappling with the realization that the man she thought was her brother had been lying to her for years. The depth of Andrew's manipulation had left her questioning her judgment and the relationships she had trusted. Lisa, though physically unharmed, carried emotional scars. She had fought hard to protect Jane, but the strain of the events had left their relationship fragile. They had both been victims of Andrew's lies, but the damage he caused ran deeper than either of them could have anticipated. The legal proceedings were swift. Andrew was charged with multiple counts of fraud, along with attempted assault for his attack on Lisa. His criminal history unraveled in court, exposing the extent of his deception over the years. The trial brought some closure, but it also forced Jane to relive the trauma in public. Every courtroom appearance was a reminder of how easily Andrew had infiltrated her life and how close she had come to losing everything. Psychologists involved in the case provided insight into Andrew's behavior. They described him as a classic manipulator, a man skilled in gaining trust and exploiting vulnerability. His obsession with controlling Jane had pushed him over the edge, turning what was once financial exploitation into something far more dangerous. Jane's guilt over not seeing the signs haunted her, but she slowly began to understand that Andrew had fooled everyone, not just her. The impact of the events on the small town of Riverside was significant. Once a quiet place where Jane and Lisa had hoped to build a peaceful life, Riverside had become a source of painful memories. Neighbors who had once smiled and waved now gossiped behind their backs, and the media attention had left a lasting mark on the community. For Jane and Lisa, the road to healing was long and difficult. Trust, once the foundation of their relationship, had been deeply fractured. They began counseling, determined to rebuild what Andrew had tried to destroy. Each day was a small step toward recovery, but the journey was far from over. Despite the darkness Andrew had brought into their lives, Jane and Lisa found solace in each other. They had survived the ordeal, and while their relationship had been tested, they were determined to move forward together. In the end, Andrew's deception had nearly destroyed them, but it hadn't broken them completely. The love they shared, though scarred, remained their guiding light as they rebuilt their lives, one piece at a time. In the end, Jane and Lisa's lives were forever changed by the man they once thought they knew. Andrew Harper's deception left a trail of pain, but Jane and Lisa's determination to survive brought them through the darkest days. Their story serves as a reminder of how dangerous hidden secrets can be, even when they come from those closest to us. What do you think? Could Andrew's obsession have been stopped sooner? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more true crime stories that will leave you questioning everything. Thanks so much for watching. What do you think about Jane and Lisa's story? Do you believe Andrew's true intentions could have been uncovered sooner, or was it too late by the time he showed up? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you think. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more true crime stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Until next time, stay safe.